Her name was Tomoe Gozen, and she appears in the Samurai Chronicles in the latter half of the 12th century. She was said to be an expert martial artist, going on to become a teacher of martial arts, before having a role of a more military nature. It may be worth pointing out first that it was not uncommon for women in feudal Japan to receive martial art training. Between the 12th and 19th centuries, women of the samurai class were trained to not only use the sword, but also the bow and arrow. Nevertheless, the roles of these female warriors was primarily defensive in nature, as they were expected to protect themselves and their homes in the event of an enemy attack. What sets Tomoe Gozen apart from her fellow warrior women was that she was trained for offensive skirmishes rather than the defensive scenarios in which many others were prepared for. Tomoe Gozen is only mentioned in one account in the Tale of Heike during the Genpei War of the 12th century. There aren't actually any other written records of Gozen's life, which understandably has led many historians to question the legitimacy of her existence. But as we always do on this channel, we'll speculate and try to decipher what we think is real or not, as I like to believe there has to be a little truth in every tale. Tomoe Gozen is described as having black hair and fair skin, perhaps so strikingly beautiful that she stood out. She was also noted as being a fearless rider, one who was fierce with a horse and possibly more skilled than many of her male counterparts. It's said that she was able to maintain full functionality of the bow whilst riding at fast speeds, and was as dexterous as she would have been standing on flat ground. The Tale of Heike quotes her as being fit to meet either God or the devil on the battlefield. As you can imagine, given what little evidence we have on Tomoe Gozen's existence, we know nothing about her childhood or early life. We can understand from the Tale of Heike that she would wind up serving the samurai lord Minamoto Yoshinaka in the Genpei War between the Minamoto clan and the Taira clan, though it's been speculated that Gozen was just his wife, his mistress, or a mere servant. Tomoe Gozen has a few instances of battle that are documented in the Tale of Heike, though all of them center on the Genpei War between the rebellious Minamoto clan and the Taira clan in their dispute to decide the ruler of Japan. The first instance we see Tomoe Gozen in battle is when she was deployed by Yoshinaka in the Battle of Yokotokawara in 1181. It was during this battle that Gozen proved that she could stand just as tall as her male counterparts, going on to decapitate 7 men and place their heads on pikes so that all would know of her skill. Her presence on the battlefield would become so significant that the Minamoto clan would entrust her to lead a force of 1,000 men strong. Minamoto Yoshinaka would find himself engaged in a battle with his cousin at what is known as the Battle of Awazu in 1184. It would be Yoshinaka's last stand against his cousin's forces, where there are many accounts of his fate. For Yoshinaka, it's been said that he found a nice quiet spot for which to commit seppuku, before he could be killed. Another instance has him trying to escape, only for his horse to become mired in icy mud, allowing for his cousin's forces to catch up to him and fill him with arrows. A more insidious account suggests that after his horse was stuck in the mud, Yoshinaka placed his sword in his mouth and then jumped from his horse, decapitating or impaling himself upon hitting the ground. In the instance of Tomoe Gozen, the legend has it that Yoshinaka's army would be mostly wiped out by his cousin's army of 6,000 men, reducing his own number to just 5. Amongst those 5 was Tomoe Gozen, sword in hand and ready to face down the oncoming enemy, regardless of the odds. By this point, she would have already earned her fearsome reputation and was known for going up against men with such a ferocity that it was hard to distinguish her from a regular samurai. However, Yoshinaka would order her to leave the battlefield, claiming that it would bring shame upon him if he died with a woman at his side. The implication of this would obviously leave Yoshinaka further short-handed. Not that he would have stood much of a chance anyway, but socially, it serves to remind us of the hierarchy between men and women in feudal Japan, that it would be considered a disgrace to die being defended by a woman. The idea that feudal Japan was very much a man's world despite women taking up swords rings out very true in this instance. Reluctantly, Gozen obeyed her master's orders, but was said to behead an approaching enemy, as if to demonstrate both her skill and frustration at having been dismissed. In another version, Gozen seeks the permission of Yoshinaka to obtain a final kill in honor of him, which he agrees to. Gozen was set to stride into the oncoming enemy horde, singled out the strongest and most reputed man amongst them, a warrior named Oda no Hachiro, and beheaded him. In an extended version of the Tale of Heike, Tomoe Gozen was said to have been defeated by Wada Yoshimori, a vassal and military commander of the Kamakura shogunate, who came into conflict with Gozen after the death of Minamoto Yoshinaka. She wasn't outright killed, however, and was instead forced to have become his concubine. Another story suggesting the fate of Tomoe Gozen states that she became a nun and would live the remainder of her days mostly in peace. A third story depicts Tomoe Gozen avenging the death of Minamoto Yoshinaka by slaying his enemies, though it is not detailed as to whether she did this alone through the use of deceptions and assassinations, or whether she raised armies to wage war, both of these being terribly unlikely, considering these two events have never been documented. In the event that she did slay Yoshinaka's enemies, she was later said to have taken Yoshinaka's head and walked off into the sea with it, perhaps as a token of her love for him, or merely so that his enemies could not defile it. Her ultimate fate, however, remains a mystery to us.